Would you believe me when I tell you, you are the queen of my heart? Please don't deceive me when I hurt you, just ain't the way it seems. Can you feel my love, buzz? Can you feel my love, buzz? Can you feel my love, buzz? Can you feel my love? Would you believe me when I tell you, you are the queen of my heart? Please don't deceive me when I hurt you, just ain't the way it seems. Can you feel my love, buzz? Can you feel my love, buzz? Can you feel my love, buzz? Can you feel my love?
All right, we are live. Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Hive for another episode of Creation Watch. So glad to have you all returning. And as you can see today, we have the one and only Jay Bundy on the show.
Yes.
So anybody who doesn't know who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jay Bundy. I'm a real life evolutionary biologist. Finished my PhD in 2021 at Michigan State University in the lab of Dr. Rich Lenski with the long-term evolution experiment. I am currently a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Minnesota, where I do research and teach biology.
All right.
I think my camera froze. I'm gonna unfreeze it.
You'll freeze a little bit. That's the right temperature for it. Both where Jay and I are, it's pretty frigid right now. What's the temperature right now where I'm at? It's too cold to go outside. It's above zero. It's 5 degrees. 5 degrees for me here. I think Cosmic Kyle says it's negative 12 degrees there. That sounds just
That is
awful.
seriously cold.
Yeah.
Seriously cold. Yeah, my water's frozen, so I'm all about it. We're in the middle of a deep freeze here for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got that fire roaring behind you. That must be toasty, huh?
Yeah, I wish. But yeah, I'm at Pocket Locker 86. Go ahead, come on, join the community. I have a great community as Bree can attest to. So come on and join us here on the YouTubes. I also stream on Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook, but most people will find us on YouTube.
And it's not just a public-facing community. It's it's a safer community for just about anybody to come and if you got if you got something going on in your life and you want to talk about it, there's usually people there, stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah, I've got a Discord, but we spend a lot of time in Gather, right, which
Yeah.
actually allows us to hang out on a regular basis offline. So our community is definitely filled with people who are like really friends. Like we really know each other.
Yeah, it's a nice community. So yeah, Pocket Locker 86, absolutely subscribe to that. Today I invited Jay over to actually look into some evolutionary stuff. A little, maybe not quite in his wheelhouse because it's anthropological evolution, but I thought it would still be a little window because today is Martin Luther King Day here in the
Yes.
U.S. A lot of people seem to think that racism is a thing of the past, and it's really not. It's not.
Really not.
And,
It's really not.
and it's allowed on with the proper framing. It's allowed right here on the same platform that we're on. There are channels on YouTube that absolutely promote like race realism and things like that. So I'm gonna start us off with that. This is allowed on YouTube. The name of this video is Biology Matters: Debunking the Race as a Social Construct Hustlers. Who are the hustlers, you may ask? Well, let's find out who they think the hustlers are. You ready?
Ready.
Is race a social construct? You've seen them out in public and all over social media. Social justice activists shouting mantras learned from their Marxist college professors.
And he doesn't have a good balance of his background music with what he's saying, by the way. So you just kind of like
No.
gotta roll with it.
No, yeah, no, it's fine. This is very amusing though.
Yeah.
Social justice activists shouting mantras learned from their Marxist college professors. Let me just say right up front, the thing that really gets me with this is these are not the people who we get the race as a social construct from. Right. So, it would be nice to say if you're gonna really tackle this concept, go after the anthropologist, the sociologist, the people that actually are teaching that idea and the evidence for it. Instead, this is clearly a person who's upset about the current political climate and like so many other issues. Gender and sex being one, they're sort of trying to use a biology argument to reinforce their prejudice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm assuming this is just stock footage of just people protesting, but
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I don't think Andrew Tate when I think of a social justice warrior.
The guy is giving me Andrew Tate. He's definitely giving me Andrew Tate, and it's giving me stock footage because I think that woman in real life would not be at a Marxist protest next to the Andrew Tate type. So
yeah,
but real shout out to everybody else that has that look. Because it's a common look, right? You get to a certain age as a man and the hairline starts receding, things start graying. Neil Strauss used to say, bald is a style, balding is not a style. So there's a lot of guys out there, they're just bald and, you know, trying to keep a neat facial hair trim, and everywhere they go, people are telling them they look like Andrew Tate. Just, I feel for y'all. I feel for y'all.
I want to say I want to read some of the commentary that we've got from the live chat here real quick. From Maya, she says the Republican frontrunner is running on a racist campaign. Hard to make an argument that it isn't. It is in the past. Absolutely, yeah. The whole fabricated border crisis nonsense, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But you know, one of the things that I was thinking when we started this is we deal with this a lot on YouTube, right? So we're showing a video of like a person outside of our community who's made this sort of like racist video, right? But we deal with a lot of people that we actually have interactions with, that we know, that we talk to, that we sit down with, that are, you know, they have problematic racial views that they express, sometimes right in front of us, other times not. But no, racism is alive and well, and being a YouTube creator really reminds me of that all the time. I think somebody told me basically that Andrew Wilson, who's a known Christian nationalist, he came flat out and said we went wrong when we allowed women and people of color the right to vote. In 2024, a fool said that.
Yeah.
You know, I seen a screenshot the other day of people like, you know, some people out there, some popular content creators asking a question of what's wrong with so-and-so being racist. I mean, this is stuff people are saying and we're dealing with right now. And also just the fact that a lot of us are into counter apologetics, right? There's a lot of overlap, like what you're doing here, like on this show where you debunk Creationist. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of creationists, they still buy into that Shem and Ham and, you know, all this type of stuff. So racism is alive and well. And actually, Brie, I want to commend you for wanting to address it.
Yeah, that's definitely relevant to what we're covering here with Shem, because there's a few different little short videos that this one's only 11.
Yeah. I guess I just say that to say a lot of times people aren't having a conversation about race, but they still have racist views. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to drag it kicking and screaming into the light. If you want to have bad racial takes, I want to put it right underneath the microscope and put a microphone up to you and say, yeah, explain it to us. Explain your racism to us, which is what we're doing right here. There's our woke professor.
I guess this is black girl learning from her Marxist professor.
Yeah.
Oh.
About black history. Yeah. Here we go.
Construct. There is no such thing as race. End quote. Bill Nye.
Right, because the genetic diversity of the human race is pretty narrow. So we aren't diverse enough to have land races. Land races being like different domesticated stocks. But humans we're not plastic enough for that. We're not like dogs, right? We can't bend and flex. You can't make little people and big people and in just a few generations like that. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah, and there's definitely some straw manning here going on with this one too, like biological distinctions. Why should we want to do that? Are any real racial classifications useful from the issue of justice and fairness? And this is just so interesting because we don't deny the reality of race in the social sphere. We don't deny its effect. We don't deny racism, just like we don't deny sexism or homophobia or transphobia. And so when it comes to be practical to matters of issues of justice and fairness, we bring them into the conversation. We're all, you know, most of us that are reasonable people, we're all about saying, oh yeah, there's been a history of mistreatment of black people. So we have to do special things to, you know, counteract those injustices. And we say this about other racially, you know, Native Americans and Latino people and Asians, just all types of different minority groups. And so I think we're actually at a pretty good place, which is where we're understanding that when we look at our population, when we look at our traits, that we don't have these neat categories to separate people into, but that they have profoundly impacted our relationships and our society. And so I'm sure this person that they're misquoting would agree with that. So it's a weird cherry picked quote the way they did this here.
Yeah, and it's an anecdote I often reiterate on this channel when I'm talking about race stuff. Is, you know, the town I grew up in has a Confederate monument still in front of the courthouse. It's pretty cringy, right?
Absolutely.
And you don't, when you're inside the bubble, you don't get it. You don't get it when you're inside there. But once you escape, right? Once you get out and look back, we lost Jay. Once you get out and look back, things are a little bit more cringy. Things are a little bit more uncomfortable, and people don't. And when you pointed out the people that are still in the bubble, they take it like it's a personal attack. It's really bizarre. The try that in a small town people that just don't they don't seem to want to understand the racial implications of our history as a country, and how that impacts the way people see small town middle America today.
Yeah, and that's a great example, actually, because that's one of those situations where that entire culture, and I'm a country music fan, is steeped in sort of the assumptions of who real Americans are, what small towns look like. And so there's a lot of dog whistling in cultural products like that song, to where it's almost like we can just assume the other folks aren't listening, right? That's a song written like just assuming we're talking about small town folks. Y'all know what we mean. Y'all know who we're talking about, right? And then it kind of lulls the rest of us to sleep, because you're not going to hear the N-word. You're not going to hear these like explicit references that are going to make your alarm go off, like racist. And so that's the current difficulty. It's that we're in that era of plausible deniability where bad actors have figured out how to toe the line, and there's a lot of good faith actors that then aren't clear, right? They can't tell what's going on.
Yeah, and there's like, it's just a song about being proud to be from a small town. It's like, no.
Right.
Quote, biological distinctions. Why should we want to do that? Are any racial classifications useful from the issue of justice and fairness? End quote. Professor Philip Kitchener, Columbia University.
That's so reasonable. What's wrong with that? That's so fucking reasonable. It's like, yeah, there may be genetic differences between people groups, but is that going to help us to regulate our justice system or the way that we organize our societies? You know, we've done that for years, organized our societies by these supposed racial distinctions between haplogroups, and it's been to the detriment of mankind, at least the majority of people. But there's something wrong with the human mind that we see when we see ourselves. The people on the top are supposed to be revered for some reason, and I don't understand. They want to think they won the genetic lottery or something. It's gross. But this is the same channel that winks Robert Steffer, who thinks Trump has the divine right to lead us, like, because of his genetics.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like, for people in the audience that may not know where this comes from, basically the idea is humans exist. Any of our traits exist on a continuum. Like, if we took our height, right, we'd have, short people over to the left of the x-axis and tall people over to the right of the x-axis. When we look at any sort of meaningful combination of traits, human populations don't segregate neatly based on race. There isn't like the white height range and then the black height range, or, you know, black people have these size noses and white people have these size noses. There might be differences between the groups, but there's going to be so much overlap that you can't meaningfully, you know, distinguish out, you know, the different
Most
groups.
obvious.
The skin color is the obvious one,
Yeah,
and even that doesn't work.
Spectrum. You got
Even that don't work. Look, you could,
ghost.
yes, you can look at, you know, this is a thing in Black history, but you can look at my family, and it's everything from people that are significantly darker than me to people that, like, my mom's actually much lighter skinned than I am, and my grandma's light skinned. My grandmother's brother can pass. Like, you'd have to get all up in his family history. You would just think he just looks like a tan white guy with short curly hair. Like, even growing up, like I was like, oh no. But it's a lot of people in my family. He's just more to that side than some of the other people in my family are. So that's a perfect example. So that's what we mean. The other thing that we talk about with this is admixture. Like you said, this naive notion that even if you are the whitest of the McWhite-whites in, you know, all your family history that you know of going back to the you know, Europe was all whitest of the whites, you're gonna have some admixture in your family, which means if we currently looked at a lot, sometimes the assessments we do, basically they look at your genes and they decide, you know, how much of it is sort of like sub-Saharan African DNA versus European DNA versus traditional, like, native groups. And what we find basically is that basically nobody's a pure blood. The people with the whitest of the McWhite histories, they're just going to have low levels of admixture. They're just going to be a few percent of Native American blood or a few percent of African ancestry, but there's going to be some. And for a lot of us, there's significant amounts. Like, I think I'm like 13% like European genes and stuff like that, but you wouldn't see me and go, oh, he's a man of European descent. So what, again, we're saying is that there's a continuum, and when you put people on that continuum of the admixture of their genes, you're just not gonna get clean and neat distinctions between the races, because all our genes have been mixing, you know, throughout our history. So just for people that
thousands of years, right?
Yeah. I just didn't want to jump ahead for people who don't understand why we say race is a social construct. What is the actual evidence and the science that we're talking about when we say those things?
Yeah, because the narrative that's being spun by channels like this is that you only have one lineage, right? Probably your paternal line. That's what they lean into, and you're supposed to want that to go back to the whitest McWhite to be descendant from Atlanteans is basically the bottom line.
Yeah. Pure race and all that type of stuff. Yeah. So, yeah.
Race as a social construct is pushed by left-wing activists posing as scientists on YouTube.
Okay, I know at least two of these people are scientists.
Yeah, me too.
Aaron
Ra, yeah, and
Erica
Guts Gibbon.
I'm betting that means that the gentleman with the pink hair, I don't know his name, but I bet he is. And there's another weird thing going on here too, because again, these people are scientists. And my hat goes off to them because they put so much work into it. But they're also professional science communicators. Like, I might have a PhD in biology, but I have nowhere near the credentials as a science communicator that someone like Aaron Ra does or Guts Gibbon does, because they have been putting that time in for years to actually explain to the public what the evidence is, how we know what we know, and all of that. But again, if you were going to truly debunk the concept of race as a social construct, you should be talking about the evidence and the scientist who came up with the concept. You should not be going after science communicators,
right? It's just another. It's always just another thing. They're always picking on the wrong people. But it's also just embarrassing because all these people have a lot more credibility than whoever we're listening to. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you can't tell, he's going for a look here, right? You got the guy with the tattoos, the guy with the pink hair, and of course we all know
guy looks like Satan.
Yeah. Erica looks like a normal woman, but she's a woman, so let's just slap some cockroaches on her and call it a day. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're not posing as scientists. These are actual scientists. I know
they're
personally.
actual scientists.
They're,
Yeah.
friends of the channel, so yeah.
YouTube, and other social media. Quote, biological distinctions, often called race realism, proponents of these views say racial groups have real differences. This has been the view of terrorists, Nazis, and other racists, end quote.
Yeah, because like what Jay was just explaining about the genetic diversity just within the population groups we have today, or you're still gonna have admixtures of all the other groups in some degree, right? So to claim that you're pure anything is the talking points of terrorists, Nazis, and other racists. Nobody's pure.
And I honestly do think this evidence is helping us a long way. I because a lot of the people we deal with online, I think they believe that they are purebloods. And more and more people are having their genes sequenced, part of a research project, part of 23andMe, part of something like that. We're doing it a lot more with students coming through school. So this is actually huge, right? Because people are showing up at college and all they've been told about is they're German, right? And now they're finding out, wait, I'm 7% sub-Saharan African, I'm 12% Native American, and it's melting down, right? The sort of racial barriers that we've put up. So all this evidence is really important, and it's really good stuff. Bree, I'm listening. I'm stepping away for 1 second because I hear water running now, so I'm thinking I need to deal with that real quick.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go for it. I'll play it.
Professor Zach Hancock, University of Michigan. The social activists use similar talking points and repeat them on campus, all over the community, and on social.
And by talking points, he means the science, like the genetics and stuff. They're not just talking points. They're talking points backed with data to make it very clear that the human species is not so neatly into subcategories as they want it to be.
Media. But the hard evidence does not.
Oh, definitely. I'm totally a Gutstick Gibbons simp. Yeah, Aaron Ra too. Me and Aaron have worked on projects together in the past. I helped with the spider video. Why is he saying like that? It is the position of terrorist, right? Yeah, the pure race. We are the chosen people, right? That's the idea. Let's see, I'm gonna back this up 5 seconds. See what he's.
But the hard evidence does not match their dogmatic bromides.
Wait, so, it does. Do you think that that we are defined distinctly by different little subsets of human races? Do you actually think that that's a real thing and we don't exist on an entire spectrum of different admixtures and epigenetic traits that have been passed down through features like the founder's effect and whatnot that manipulate our genes to give us the different and unique characteristics of all of us as individuals within our families? Are you saying that's not true and instead we're just all rigid lines? Because I don't think that pans out, my good sir.
Lowington's fallacy.
I say good sir sarcastically. This guy's garbage.
Scientific American has called Richard Lowington arguably the most influential population geneticist of the 20th century. Professor Lowington, a self-professed Marxist, taught at Columbia for over 40 years.
Get your soundscape under control, my dude.
College textbooks have entire chapters devoted to Lowington and his theories on genetics. Lowington's study was
I have
released...
water.
Woo!
I've been so happy to just hear running water in my life. Oh man.
Let it flow. You get your dishes, your laundry, your shower. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is he's talking about the F statistic. This is just so this is so interesting. All right, let's keep listening.
Okay.
Shout out real quick though to R and Ra, who we appeared on your channel with, and that was super fun. And you've done a bunch of stuff with, and I've been featured on one of Gutsick Gibbons' videos, and they just do great work. If you're not familiar, gang, please make sure you're subscribed to those people. I'm sure one of the mods can probably drop their links. That'd be great.
Yeah.
In 1972, apportionment of human diversity. Lowington devised the FST formula, which measures genetic similarity among human populations. FST serves as the...
And he's going to completely ignore the fact that it says populations and doesn't say individuals. So we're clear about how he's going to misrepresent the data here.
Basis for applied population genetics. The formula uses gene alleles to measure genetic distances between populations within a particular species. The scale runs from 0.01 to 1.0.
Music and the graphics are killing
According
me.
to Lowington's findings, all humans have 99.5% similarity.
Okay.
From...
Why are we still talking about this?
Yeah, so I think us being similar is making our case better than his, right? What's he talking
All right,
about?
I'm gonna be silly with y'all too here. This is gonna sound very petty, but look, let's go state. That building we're looking at is a building at my alma mater, Penn State. That is it's called Old Main. You can look it up. It's a very common stock picture used for university photos. It's where the administration of Penn State operates. Spent a lot of time there. I used to do a photo shoot in that building. It's not the University of Pennsylvania. I know it's petty. I know it's small, but that's just it's just another little thing to show you that they don't pay attention to details. Like when you look up the University of Pennsylvania and use a picture from Penn State, that's just no. It's a big difference. Just gonna say that it's a big difference.
I hope he reads this because I really want to read him say the majority of variation is found within a population, because their whole argument is that it's found outside the population level.
Right.
So, yeah, let's see.
University of Pennsylvania genetics professor Sarah Tishkoff, quote, FST between human populations is about 15%. The majority of the variation is found within a population. Only about 15% occurs between populations, end quote.
There you
As an
go.
15% of 15% of 95 of what? No, actually, it wasn't 95%. What it would be 95.5 of 0.5% of the population.
Yes, right, exactly.
No.
And he said it. Most of the variation comes within populations. That's the whole argument. That's the whole thing. Is the most of the variation you will find within populations, and when you look between populations, you're not going to have enough of a distinction to separate them compared to. And everything is like that. Everything that you measure, what are the differences? There's levels. Like if you're like, let's say you're doing a census, you want to know what's the difference between, you know, the percentage of people that support a particular policy in my neighborhood versus in my city versus in my state versus in my country. Those are all different levels, right? And you want to know which level is actually explaining the differences. If you live in a very homogeneous state, There's not going to be a lot of variation from city to city or neighborhood to neighborhood. If you live in a large metropolitan city, most of the variation might be explained in the different neighborhoods that people live in. So this is just some, you need to be able to think in sort of multiple levels to understand what we're talking about here with these statistics.
Well, I mean, the idea here is that if you live if you're part of a population in a different neighborhood, and you have there's some genetic distinct markers in there, that means you evolved in that neighborhood, right? That's the argument. That's the level of argumentation that they have. Like it's basically black people evolved to live in ghettos. It's because they don't have the sacred Atlantean blood to make them work harder. There's actually, this guy has a video talking about how there's a secret Neanderthal gene that makes white people work harder.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh my goodness is right.
Example, two random humans, max differential could be 0.5%. Two cluster of ethnic populations, max differential could be 15%.
Did you catch that? That's what I was talking about, where he's going to flip-flop it from being about individual variation between individuals and variation between populations.
Yes. Even though he just cited the scientists saying most of the variation occurs within populations. Yeah.
And as UC Love points out, the biggest genetic differences between human groups is blood type. Literally, it's blood type. So
yeah, and that's very interesting. That's a very good point, UC Love. And also, like, this person just wants to scare us with numbers. Like, we're just supposed to see that 15% and go, that's a lot. Okay, race realism must be the. I mean, this is just it's literally very low hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's kind of a reversal of the idea that it's like 64% of our genetics with a banana or something. They're trying to put that on the same scale. 64% with a banana, and then only then 15% with other humans. It's like, that's what they want you to think about in your brain when you're talking about that. But that's not how this sort of mapping works either. So.
The math of the Lowington formula is fundamentally correct. However, as we will soon see, the model fails in comparative analysis. It also overlooks some hugely important variables.
This little YouTube channel is about to overturn the Lowington formula. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's I'm wondering where this person's Nobel Prize is. I'm wondering
papers, dude?
Where's your papers? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, this is certainly not a result most of us would sit on and then publish to a YouTube channel. And it would be interesting to learn this person's educational background. It's certainly, I would guess, in a different field. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a math background, though. Looks like they're one of these mathers. But what's also interesting too is the audience, like the audience for something like this that just accepts that this person is claiming to debunk an entire field of science without having or demonstrating any expertise in that field.
Yeah. I also want to thank Logan for posting those links for us. And we asked him why.
Oh, yes. Thanks so much, Logan.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I got some cool folks out there in my live chat handling things and keeping it all under control. I don't ever get trolls on this channel because they don't make it past like a single post. Like
Robert is also is currently cold because all their heat is blowing on the pipe. So Robert, I hope your water comes back soon as well. It's definitely a relief. Yeah, I noticed the same thing about my channel, Bree, which is if you create a strong culture of like not tolerating that, then people just quickly realize that your channel is not the place for it. So I thank the community. I thank the mods. We have great mods, and it's our personal styles. Like we would rather not have that, right? Some other channels, they like that stuff, and you know they have a lot of restraint. They were sort of timing out or blocking someone's sort of the last resort, so to speak. But I like a clean chat. To be honest with you, I actually found too much antagonism in my chat to be frustrating. It like distracts me away from what I'm trying to stream about, and also makes streaming like not fun for me. So if anybody's wondering about that, that's why I have a stronger policy against trolls.
Yeah.
Enter our primate cousins.
Yes.
Okay.
According to Dr. Tishkoff, the average FST among chimpanzee populations is 32%.
Dude, your soundscape is driving me crazy.
It's driving me nuts.
Why doesn't he line it up with the transition? He could do that.
Yes, and just pull it back when he's talking, and it's so weird. And it's also weird to like have this pleasant, happy vibe to the disinformation.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of PragerU in that sense of like the the style, everything's so pleasant and so well animated, but the actual content is just garbage. Complete and utter garbage. And again, this person is just debunking themselves. I'm so confused. Why would you show the statistic? Because it's showing you, and we don't go around talking about different races of chimpanzees, but that even with your crazy 15% estimate that there's less of a variation between human groups than there are chimpanzee populations. I don't even it's like their own statistics debunk them. I don't even.
So funny. Do they not understand that chimpanzees live in little pocket groups scattered all over Africa that don't interact with each other much at all, and they're going to be more genetically isolated and therefore have a higher FST than the human population? Such a weird argument. This doesn't work in your favor, dude.
Doesn't work at all.
In taxonomical classifications, 32% differential amounts to 4 separate subspecies designations for chimpanzees, plus the bonobos.
Right, and then we talked about just a minute ago that it was like the differences between the human populations was 95%, so we got a 32% differential, but you want to make it out like it's a 15% differential between human populations because you pulled a fast one and flip-flopped that around from the individual to the population mechanics that the measurements are supposed to demonstrate, right?
Yeah, but I do see here now where he's I guess the consistency he's trying to draw is that if they have 32% and we differentiate them into 4 subspecies, then our 15% should be enough to divide us into separate species. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it used to. That's why we have 15. That's why I have like 3% Neanderthal genes.
Yes.
Pacific Islanders have a little bit of Denisovans in them, or things like that. Yeah, it used to be that way. But when a population blooms like the Homo sapiens did and spreads all over the globe and swallows up all the other species, it's not the same thing as distinct isolated populations of chimpanzees that haven't interacted with each other in 18 million years, not literally 18 million years, but like in like
a very long time.
Years.
Yeah.
Then they're going to be distinct and different. But we ate all of our relatives. Consumed.
And then again, it's like, and who makes these distinctions, right? It's scientists who are going in and deciding how many species of chimpanzee we have, how much variation there is between them, what their level of admixture is, what their level of what's the word I'm looking for, migration is, right? Because these are all the things that affect this. And we're all one species. We have high migration. We have less differential between this. It's so weird how they want to be like, they want to basically say, oh, science is disproving the scientific consensus. That's not how science works. So if we're supposed to take this subspecies of 4 subspecies of chimpanzees and whatever their F tests are, if we're supposed to take that as gospel because he's quoting scientific evidence, then why is he dismissing the scientists that tell us there are no races of people? It's a social construct. We're one species. It's just so weird. He wants us to give these scientists all the credence when it comes to the chimps, but then take away their credence when it comes to humans.
Right. Well, it's like I'm gonna bring it back to something he was talking about earlier in early on with canines, right? There's only one, like the one species of wolf that lives all the way across Europe, Asia, North America, down into Mexico. There's one species. It's one distinct species because they are cursorial migratory animals. So they intermingle with other cursorial migratory populations regularly. Chimp is not a migratory animal. They are not cursorial. They live in isolated pockets and don't intermingle. So their 32% can be present as a marker of millions of years of divergence, whereas a 15% difference of the human race across the spectrum of populations that are highly migratory is expected. Okay, I'll play it. I'm ranting now.
4 subspecies of chimpanzees, our closest living relatives. Yet, according to Dr. Tishkoff and other Lowington disciples, 15% FST differential for humans is merely a social construct. Lowington geneticists also ignore FST comparisons within the overall taxonomic family of primates.
I don't think they're ignoring it. I think you're ignoring ecological factors is why you're confused about this, sir.
Yeah, and this is just a thing. Like, what do you mean ignoring it? Like, it exists. It's been measured.
Yeah.
What is? I think part of this is when, and I'm gonna just call him an apologist. When apologists find like a thing that they think is gonna prove their case or is a solid argument, they just look for it everywhere, and it's like the most important thing to them. For the most part, primatologists and Guts of Gibbon, obviously, but you're a lot better at explaining this, but they're just in a different place. Like, we're not going to keep measuring genetics the same way for like 500 years. Like, we've made most of these measures. Like, people have just moved on to different techniques, different questions. This is not like a pressing issue anymore now that we have like whole genome sequencing. Like, it's just
right.
Get with the times, my guy.
Lowington formula anymore now that we have actual 100% mapped the human genome. We've mapped, I think, most of the chimpanzee genome. So yeah, within those two populations, within those two species, we have a lot of material that wasn't around when this model was constructed.
Yeah. But also, I just want to enforce the thing you made, because, again, this is just, it takes a Google search. You can just Google Lewontin FST human variation. Lewontin found that the majority of total genetic variation between humans, of the 0.1% of DNA that varies between individuals, 85% is found within populations. 8.3% of the variance is found between populations within a race, and only 6.3 was found to account for the racial classification. So yeah,
not a lot there. Yeah,
I wouldn't be talking about Lewontin genetics if I were this guy, but that's just me.
Yeah.
The left geneticists and their social justice disciples never mention that humans and chimpanzees are 98.6% genetically similar.
He has watched Guts That Gibbon's channel, right?
Okay,
That could
but
be
it's
her
just
tagline.
I just I there's something that really bothers me about these people. Like it almost seems like they don't know real universities. We would not, first off, we would not describe, scientists within a certain discipline based on their politics. These people think since their politics determines everything, you know, eh, that left wing radical socialist mom in the lunch line, she will skimp on the sloppy Joe because of her communist values, but you need a true red-blooded American to give you the hookup in the lunch counter. Like everything to them is about political ideology. Nobody would describe geneticists as left. We don't know anything about their politics. Have you met any geneticists? These are the most bone dry. Yeah, we took a sample of DNA, we ran it on the sequencer, and this is the sequence we got back. We then compared it to this other sequence, and these are the parts where it lines up, and these are the parts where it doesn't. I mean, if you can stay awake through a genetic seminar, good on you, but nothing you will hear will in any way, shape, or form give you an inclination as to that person's political leanings. And they're social justice disciples. It's just very weird. And another thing I want to just debunk overall is like the left leaning of academia. It's just not true. You might have students who are like, they're out of the house for the first time. They're meeting people who are different than they are. Yeah, they're waking up. They're realizing they've got some agency in the world around them, and they want to see things change. A lot of professors are highly educated and all that good stuff, but the university is run by the administration, who is beholden to the state government that funds it and the donors. And if you actually work or spend any time at a university, all of the policy making and decisions is not left leaning at all. It's primarily rich conservative people that get the trustees and the president and all the administration to be beholden to what they want because they control the purse strings. I just get so sick of people thinking that universities are like these crazy liberal socialist factories. They're just not. And social justice, they don't even care about. Sorry, I know I'm rambling. Let's just move on. It's just very frustrating stereotype.
I'm thinking about like when they see that gay people are welcome on campus and things like that. That just to them that means that anybody who works at that university, if a university accepts gay people or black people. And they have a genetics department. Those are leftist genetics or geneticists, just by default, because the university is progressive enough to be accepting of. It's not Bob Jones University. It's not Liberty University.
Yeah,
they're leftist geneticists.
And Beamsy, I don't even think most soft science. I think what really happens, honestly, is we politicize knowledge. We do live in a country where conservatives, unfortunately, are very anti-science, and they're anti what things that people have found. So if you're a psychologist and you're like, yeah, I do research on, sexuality or whatever, and you find evidence that supports particular identities, but supports what people are saying, people are going to assume that you're like, that's your policy, that's your policy. It's not really. It's just your discipline. And it's unfortunate that we have an entire side of the spectrum that just doesn't like science and doesn't like facts, but it then makes the people who teach those facts, who do that research, seem like they're politically motivated when honestly they're not. And if they are, we're trained well enough to not bring it into the classroom.
And if they want to make an argument that the social sciences of university are left leaning, but the conflation here that means the genetics department is left leaning is where it's ridiculous. They could have like social science classes like where they teach critical race theory and stuff. That does not mean their genetics department is woke.
Yes, right. It means the conservative asshole is wrong, right? The other thing is, I just want to say that I immediately think a person like this is prejudiced. It's 2023, I guess, when they made this, right? It's 2024 now. Maybe they made this in 2023. I'm not sure when this came out. But this railing against genetics and then assigning it to their social justice disciples, it just tells me this person really is on one, because you're denigrating being a social justice person. You're literally telling us that social justice is bad, and it's wrong because they're following these left-wing geneticists. It just tells us you're anti-science, you don't accept the evidence, and you're a bigot who somehow, because I'm just letting people know from my perspective, that's what I hear. A person loses credibility to me as soon as they denigrate social justice, because social justice is a good thing. I think we should be working towards it. And to be honest, I'm a leftist academic. I wish the university was a left-leaning social justice institution and that was all they cared about. It's just not. It just isn't.
Well, let's see what more this gentleman has to say. And I say gentleman sarcastically, by the way.
It should pop up Steph's comment
And humans and bonobo.
She just said it's a hangover
up
from the 60s and 70s, Jay. People think of Hoardson, Tim Leary, Dickie Alpert, and Angela Davis and the anti-war stuff. The entire zeitgeist has moved rightward since. Yeah. Great point, Steph.
Are even a tiny bit more closely related at 98.7% genetically similar. That is humans at 99.5%, chimpanzees at 98.6%, and bonobos at 98.7%.
Right.
The fatal flaw in the genetics professor's modeling. The evolutionary science world changed dramatically in 2010 when Svante Pääbo and his team in Leipzig, Germany confirmed Neanderthal DNA admixture in the Eurasian genome. We now know Europeans have 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA admixture.
And we covered that. That's that again, it does not support your proposition, sir.
It's just crazy too, like, because what this is really showing us is that the species boundary was not as fixed as we'd like it to be. Mm-hmm. This was showing us that Neanderthals in modern humans interbred.
Right, yeah.
We're trying to tell you that the races are not as cut and dry as you'd like them to be. And you think to counter that, I'll show you evidence that the species line is. Yeah, actually, like, what is it? Come on, man. Yes, this is telling you not only can blacks and whites get it on, we could get it on with Neanderthals.
Right, and we're not different. We're not different species, right?
This is crazy.
Oh. I think they
poor Neanderthal. I bet you that Neanderthal was handsome. They did. Because they definitely did.
Was that Quest for Fire? But why didn't they put it?
They did.
Makeup, I wonder. Let's see. I mean, wingnuts are still say even leftist Alan Dershowitz heard that on the TV a couple days ago. Dersh was bitching a couple years ago he couldn't get dinner invites in the vineyard. I don't know what that means. Dinner invites in the vineyard. Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, where's he getting his numbers from? These numbers don't look bad. It's just the inferences he's making from the numbers is what's bad.
Yeah, it's right in the range of what we typically see actually for that for the estimate of how much Neanderthal genes we have, and the fact that it's mostly found in Eurasian populations. That part is, pretty much on board with what we think.
And now we're moving on into the Denisovans admixture. So yeah.
In 2011, Matthias and Krauss discovered Denisovan DNA. We now know Asians and Melanesians have up to 5% Denisovan admixture, with some Oceanian populations as high as 7.8%.
Right. So again, like Jay was saying, even to demonstrate that the species lines are blurry is not the slam dunk argument that that the race lines are static.
It's really weird. It's really strange, and I feel odd laughing at them because there is something really sinister going on. First off, we don't know how much this person themselves is sort of repeating talking points they've heard, throwing it together and trying to make this case. I, for one, am tempted to assign a more sinister motive to them. They seem like a racist person who's just pretty much putting together a video of really bad takes to argue for race realism, which is a totally dangerous, debunked pseudoscientific idea. But I think where this fits into the sphere of the content that they're making is they want the audience to take these points, which they've laid out, which if the audience were to like quickly Google, his numbers would more or less hold up, right? And so then they're just gonna like start parroting this, and we see this with so many. I was just listening to Nitty Stream, and somebody was calling there talking about the tornado in a junkyard and the fine tuning and all this stuff, and you could tell that this is a person who just heard all these arguments. They now find them in the conversation and they just start throwing them out. And that's what this person wants his audience to do, is to just take what he's saying. If you do a cursory search, his facts are kind of in the ballpark of correct. And then you can just run with his conclusions.
Right. Yeah. If these if you look up 5% admixture Denisovans and it comes up as true and it's on a scientifically peer-reviewed paper, you're like, oh well, this guy's dropping truth bombs about race realism.
Yeah.
It's like,
I would also love to see some sort of mapping of how all of these alternate facts, alternate reality people fit together, because this race realism might seem rather niche to most of us. Like, it's kind of silly. It's certainly not down with the scientific consensus. So, how much harm is this really? Like, where do we even put this, say, in relation to something like flat Earth or young Earth creationism or something like that? But in reality, a lot of these things fit together. And so a lot of people who are religious or have other, sort of leanings in towards conspiratorial thinking, they want this race realism to hold up an important piece of their worldview. So if we really got into it with, say, a Christian nationalism or, different types of fundamentalists, for example, you might realize that they hold ideas of race realism, or that idea is really important to them. And so then you would recognize something like this is used to prop that up, right? So I don't know how broad ranging of a conspiracy this is itself, but I definitely know it's connected to a lot of broad range conspiracies that are definitely problematic right now.
And that we've had direct interactions with, like, together. We've dealt with
yes
the Robert Seffer cults and stuff. We've had first-hand experience with
absolutely
with that bad science. It's been a while, but yeah.
No, this feels exactly like right up Robert Zeffer's alley. Yeah.
Right, and the way that this guy says Cro-Magnon makes me think that he's like a full-on Zephyr acolyte. He does simp for Zephyr on some videos, but I
Okay.
think that he might get 100% of his arguments from Zephyr and other race realist
Yeah.
types that fall into that camp.
I want to say something too that might feel a bit weird here. Um, our interest is accuracy, you know, is race realism and this sort of explanation of it, does it jive with our understanding of the world around us? And the answer is no, it doesn't. But something I think it's important to think about is, what if it did? To me, I wouldn't really care.
Yeah.
If let's just say race realism's a thing, our FST is off the freaking charts, we're all sorts of different groups. Okay, then what? See, what these people really are about is racism. And they think race realism gets them to racism. But for most of us who are anti-racist, race realism wouldn't get you anywhere. You would just, okay, we're meaningfully different groups. Now what? How do we get along? They're going to be like, oh, now we can start segregating and we can start treating people all types of different. And we're just going to be like, no, we're going to be like, things are the same today as they were yesterday. We're still fighting against racism. We still want to create an inclusive world. We still want to create a world where you're born and the color of your skin and how tall you are and the shape of your brain doesn't determine your value in society. We're still going to be about every single one of those things, even if they prove that there's this crazy meaningful distinction between races. I just want to throw that in there. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I'll
how
tell
you
what
feel about people should not depend on these statistics.
I should tell you what the meaning is. It's that we are meant to rule you. See my fair skin? We are your rulers. That's the concept. That's the freaking the Ubermesh Kent Hovind bullshit. If you're white, you're meant to lead, you're meant to be the ruler over all the brown people. And for a long time, that's where that's how the Bibles were printed. That the white people are meant to take dominion over all the other races of the world. The Hamite, or is it Hamites? How do they say it? The curse of Ham. That they try to, that for a long time, that was just the accepted origins for dark-skinned people. Among the common folks, among the religious folk.
In 2019, the UCLA genetics team of Sankararaman and Dervisula confirmed 19% archaic hominin DNA admixture in modern Africans. The ghost admix could be an Australopithecine or Homo naledi. None of the genetics models pushed by liberal college professors.
So, because all the different races have admixtures from other subspecies of our species of humans, that means that we're distinct that way, I guess. I guess I'm a hybrid between Homo sapiens and a Homo neanderthalensis, and if like an Asian person would be a hybrid between a Denisovan and a Homo sapiens. And then they're going to say, oh, now they know Africans are a hybrid between Homo naledi. Yeah, and he really leans into this in another one of his videos. It's we're definitely.
Oh, that's very interesting. It was also interesting how he just keeps on this political attack, because the right wing is so committed to the cause that they send moles. We already know this. We already know people that go to grad school, get PhDs in chemistry or whatever, just so they can go work for Answers in Genesis. So this is so funny because it's like a confession that they can't get any genetics to agree with them, because you would just assume, why wouldn't there be right-wing professors? You think if a Jordan Peterson type had the opportunity to go into genetics and just prove race realism and prove that we were overlooking all this, that they wouldn't do it? No, they would do it.
If the
they
data
just
was there.
If the data was there, they would absolutely do it. But the data's not there, so instead these have to be liberal professors.
And to measure, when they say archaic humans, they're generally talking about anything like Homo erectus and back around that time, right? So we would all have admixture of Homo erectus because that's our ancestor, right? That's
Yes.
the ancestor of all species of modern humans, extinct and extant. So
yeah. Also, science does not exist in a vacuum. It is not ubiquitous. It doesn't just cover everything automatically. Science is just a process that humans do, and the most important factors people have to remember that limit science are human factors, time and money. So this idea that we don't have data on this or scientists haven't asked this could just be nobody's gotten around to it. Nobody's got research funded to do it, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, they're overlooked. It just means geneticists are busy as hell right now. and there's a lot of stuff to tackle, but they always make it like science should have covered everything by now. It should have figured everything out by now. And so when you find something they haven't done or they haven't figured out, it must be a grand conspiracy rather than just a project that hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, and Beamsy's right here. It says this is as useful as showing the different levels of fish DNA and people. Yeah, exactly. It's like saying how much DNA they share with. It's like the banana thing I was talking about earlier. Well, do we share the same amount of banana DNA with among the different races? I mean, come on.
Measure archaic hominid DNA admixture. Nor do they take into account the exploding hominid fossil record, 6 or 7 new hominid species discovered just in the last 5 years.
He's just going to claim that that's ignored by mainstream science, that we're not exploding about every time that there's a new species discovered, that it's not like on the front page of every science magazine and a publication and website. Maybe you just need to get your toes dipped into the anthropology scene, buddy, because I get alerts when there's a new species of Homo that's discovered.
Yeah, and then we get a new Gutsit Gibbon video.
Right.
Indeed, Dr. Tishkoff, regarded as the top geneticist in the country, bases her theories on the outdated and obsolete out-of-Africa model.
How is it obsolete? You've not demonstrated that it's obsolete, stupid. Wow. Did you hear him demonstrate that it was obsolete? I did not.
No. And again, it's if it were, there are other ideas out there, such as multiple migrations out of Africa, at different times and in different places and stuff like that. So he makes it sound like her theories would be based on outdated and obsolete models. It's just, no, it may be that she published at a time before that model was updated. But again, if that model was updated, it's now showing multiple migrations. It's now it's provided even more context, even more detail to support the evolutionary story. It's not, oh, the out of Africa model is out of date and she didn't realize that the Adam and Eve model is actually what scientists are supporting now. It's just like, no, it's not. That's not how, that's not how any of this works.
In her YouTube lecture series, Dr. Tishkoff states that the FST of 15% figure is based on genetic variation, quote, reflecting our common ancestor in Africa the last 50 to 100,000 years ago.
Okay.
A last common ancestor in Africa 50 to 100,000 years ago might have made more sense when Dr. Tishkoff made that assertion 14 years ago. Today, it is a grossly inaccurate and obsolete basis to utilize in genetic modeling.
citation.
We now know, given very recent archaeological finds in southern Europe, China, and Southeast Asia, early Homo sapiens were in Eurasia at least 400,000 years ago.
No, we don't. That's not true at all. This is nonsense. But there were different groups of human-like species of different species of Homo that were established in Europe and Asia at this time. They were Neanderthals and Denisovans. Now, how much human DNA admixture they carried with them when they left Africa, or that they carried with them from the borders where they migrated, because they were all migrational species, that they admixed with another group, does not in any way indicate that Homo sapiens originated in Europe. And we're gonna get. I'll let him talk.
Yeah, I was just gonna say quickly, there was here we go. There are at least several out of Africa dispersals of modern humans, possibly beginning as early as 207,000 years ago, including 215,000 years ago to at least Greece, and certainly via northern Africa and the Arabian Peninsula about 130,000 years ago to 115,000 years ago. There's evidence that modern humans had reached China around 80,000 years ago. Practically all of these early waves seem to have gone extinct or retreated back, and present-day humans outside Africa descended mainly from a single expansion about 70,000 to 50,000 years ago via the so-called southern route. This is something our audience could look into, but it's just more. No, we update the model, and then they start telling you should not believe the previous scientists because they use an outdated model. It'd be like if somebody talked to you about, the COVID virus and what the pandemic was like and what the earliest strain was like. And then somebody came along later and started talking about, the third wave and the new strains and the 2024 strains. And somebody went back and said, oh, well, that person in 2020, they were wrong. They know what the hell they were talking about. I was like, no, it just hadn't progressed to that point yet. And they were reflecting what it was at the time. But even so, as of right now, it really does seem like the out of Africa model or some variant of it is still the most well-supported hypothesis we have about human origins.
What I was pinpointing, though, is these dates he's given here are completely erroneous. 700,000 years ago.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
There was no Homo sapiens in Greece 700,000 years ago. There may have been populations of Neanderthals that had some admixture.
Oh, yeah. He's trying to really go in on separate origins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
That basically we became humans separately. It's really
Through what, like parallel? So now he's got to argue like parallel evolution or something? That's
right.
Crazy. That is wild.
Right. This is, I told you this was cringy stuff. We're getting towards the end of the video. That's when he really starts to...
Oh, all right. He's going to get to his climax. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Despite all the evidence to the contrary, the social justice activists still shout in the streets, race is a social construct.
Yep, they shouted in the streets where you'll make YouTube videos confirming it, so kudos to ya.
Seriously.
Nothing in your video has disproven race is a social construct.
Fortunately, not everyone is buying the race is a social construct line of the left-wing activists.
Red Hat MAGA girls.
A TikTok
cool.
influencer went viral in early 2023 with 1.6 million views. Quote, 9 subspecies of tigers, 3 subspecies of zebras, 9 subspecies of giraffes, but no subspecies of humans? End
Yes,
quote.
exactly.
Right.
Correct. Perfect. There you go.
Just like I was talking about with wolves, because we are a migratory species, we don't only one reign to rule them all. We wiped everybody else out, right? We
Yes.
wiped out all the other species. We have a little bit of their DNA left in us. But yes, once upon a time there were different species, and probably those species had subspecies. Some people will say that Homo floresiensis is a subspecies of Homo erectus, which, potentially, I don't know.
Yes, actually, yeah. And that's kind of very interesting too, because again, they're talking at the wrong level. We would say, if you go back far enough in evolutionary history, we believe there was a time where there was as many as at least 4 hominin species alive at the same time.
Yeah, it was like Middle
Now,
Earth, for real.
right. Now, that's a time we would have probably said there are multiple subspecies of humans. Right? They're assuming that same level of differentiation has to be going on now as it was then. And again, that just couldn't be further from the case.
And this isn't something we just see in humans either. Like let's talk about domestication or domestic cats for a second, because there were countless species and subspecies of wild cats across Europe and Asia that have gone completely extinct or have been completely absorbed into the African wildcat domestic strain. The Eurasian wildcats have been just absorbed within modern times into that gene pool. The same thing with first contact dogs. The dogs the Native Americans brought over across the Bering Land Bridge, they have been supplanted genetically. Even Chihuahuas are more genetically related now to European ancestry than to natural native ancestry that they're named for, right? So new species, subspecies, they can consume and absorb the population. If they're genetically compatible.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is so we would say going back in time, we had subspecies, and that our current migratory and patterns and travel and all that stuff just is reducing whatever would have been there to begin with, which was not even classified as a subspecies. So yeah, you're 100% right, Bree. And that's why this is a dumb argument, and it's very difficult to see it going the other way. Again, we'd have to become isolated for a really long time with no migration and no travel. It's just this is a very weird stance to take, and I hate to say it, but I normally feel like it's a tragedy of education. And, it's very predictable to me that this person in this TikTok video is trying to do like one of those, whoa, dude, you just blew my mind moments. And it's not going to happen. And unfortunately, they've also told on themselves, because I bet you they've got some problematic ideas about people of other races, because why else would you hang on to a false ideology? Most of us are happy to hear the news. Oh, racist social construct, cool. That's even more reason to not be racist. Great, thanks. But these people won't let it go. It's so weird.
Like, what do you mean white people aren't superior? Wait a second. Let me make a 10-minute YouTube video bitching about it.
Yeah. Also, I wish they would just say that because here's what I think they're really saying.
Chest, right?
Yeah, they're really saying there are races. I see races, and I'm gonna continue to think racially. And why try to put it on science, right? You guys don't care what science says elsewise. You're constantly fighting against the science. So it's just weird to try to get the science to conform to your weird idea, when for the most part you guys are comfortable just denying the science anyway. So just say science is wrong.
Yeah. And this looks like a Pearl Davis looking person. That's
Yes,
exactly what I
yes.
expect to say something like this. Why do they always look like this? Why do they always look like me? Why do they always white
They
chicks?
got us. Their fathers had a type. That's the thing.
We hope this video will inspire you to fight back against the social agitators who deny basic human biology.
It sure has. It has done that. Congratulations.
Bring it. We are
Mission
ready
fucking
for it.
accomplished. This video has inspired me to fight back against social agitators who deny basic human biology. He did that.
Like you
He
said,
did that. Oh man.
Well, what else do you got to say? Is it just gonna be plugging your stuff?
Thanks
See?
for watching, y'all. Remember, it helps our efforts greatly if you pass it.
Texas.
Who saw that comment? Who had Texas on their bingo card tonight?
Man, it's just we're in this really weird place when I'm like, my vote and that dude's vote count equally. But it is alarming that, because I'm kind of being sincere when I say that most people are happy to find out, the evidence that race is a social construct.
Right.
We're happy to find out that science is sort of in alignment with our social priorities. And so there's sort of this naive hope that will work with others. Oh, you're a race realist. Oh, you have problematic racial ideas. Oh, great. Look, here's this evidence that you don't have to be that way anymore. But we're in a scary place when we have found that evidence, we have documented that evidence, we have shared that evidence, and people just refuse to learn, refuse to grow, refuse to change. I'm someone who very much puts the value of science in sort of a limited space, because that's all science can do. Science can continue to provide us a more accurate natural explanation of the natural world. But if we're not going to use it, if we're not going to do anything differently about it, then it's just papers collecting dust. It's just research experiments that aren't going to mean anything. And that's what I mean. Like, we're at a period of time when evolution, for instance, is the most well-supported theory in the history of biology, making it pretty much arguably one of the most well-supported theories in the history of science. It's like right up there with gravity. I actually think it's more well-supported than gravity, right? You got to remember, when I say well-supported, I mean supported by evidence, like peer-reviewed papers and actual research experiments. We don't do that many experiments about gravity anymore because people accept it, people trust it. If I wrote a grant to the National Science Foundation and said, I'm going to try to find a theory that explains why objects keep falling to the ground when I knock them off the table, that project's not getting funded, right? Because there's nothing to learn there. Sorry, we're not going to fund that. But evolution,
vacuum chamber though, and you might have my interest.
Yeah. Now, if I could tell them I'm going to try to figure out what's going to happen when I do this on another planet, I might get some money. But I always say evolution is the most well-supported theory in the history of science because it had to be. It's the one theory people did not want to accept. It's one of those theories, like the Big Bang, that really challenges our place in the universe, right? That really humbles us. And so when you're dealing with people who don't accept it, we rarely have the right words to explain just how much science they're denying. Right? They're not just denying science, they're ignoring all the evidence, y'all, all of it. And it's like it's crazy. Right? So it becomes very frustrating because it's not a matter of finding more evidence. Right? It just isn't. Like it isn't a matter of finding more evidence at this point. It isn't a matter of doing better studies. We've got a heart head problem going on where people are so committed to bad ideas. They're so committed to their bigotry. They're so committed to their hatred that they're willing to forgo reality. Yes, the cognitive dissonance, Beamsy. And so I just want people who are, I do appreciate the fact that I think most people in this audience are very pro-science, and I really appreciate that. But I think we have to be honest with ourselves that that's not going to fix our social issues. That's not going to fix our politics. We've got to really figure out how to deal with these people.
Yeah, we have to put them under the, like I said, we have to drag them under the spotlight out so everybody can see what they're saying. This is what people are out here saying in 2024. If you think that we don't need critical race theory in our schools, right? If you think we don't need comprehensive evolutionary education.
Yeah.
Most states are subpar on evolutionary education, and when
100%.
You end up with people like this. Again, Texas is one of the flagships for bad curriculum.
Well, this is how they win everything, right? What happens in so many places is they've made such a stink about it. They've made it such a controversy. There's a lot of places that just admit it from the curriculum. It's just not a focus of the biology class because they don't want to deal with the headache. And if it is, it's often taught very limitedly, or they do things like deliberately avoid human evolution. So that's a big problem in evolution education is, because they'll accept micro but not macro. Yeah, there's a lot of people who just teach micro then. And so it's a real issue. But we see them do this with so many other things, right? So I think of like the trans issue where so much of what they're doing is they're protesting and they're banning things that haven't happened or aren't happening. But that allows them to sort of preemptively cut it off because then people would rather just not deal with it. And they do the same thing in the sphere of education. So they are really social antagonists, and they've figured out this way of becoming such a headache, becoming such a nuisance that they get their way just so people don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, and here I'm just gonna pull this up real quick so you guys can see what else this dude has on his page, because people are talking about what other kind of stuff he covers. Rhodesia defeats woke. Race is biological, the science of human diversity.
Oh my goodness.
Subspeciesm, an intro to human diversity.
Wow.
A genetic component to violent crime, the taboo subject monoamine oxidase.
Wow.
You know what that's about? Do you know what he's gonna try to link together there?
Yeah, black people are just naturally more violent than others because we've got the crime chemical in our system.
Yes. You're genetically predisposed to steal purses.
It must be that explains it. So what does he want? What does he want to do with black people? So we're a separate race. We're more likely to be criminal. I mean, does he outright suggest getting rid of us? I mean, because we're sounding kind of problematic. I'm not gonna lie. We're sounding like something the world would be better off without. I think it's where this guy's going.
Yeah, It's funny because at some point in the last 10 years, white people have stopped being able to say thug, and it's funny. It's funny to me because they want to, and you see it on the tip of their tongue.
Yes.
When they're referring to black people, they want to call them thugs, but it's not culturally acceptable anymore. It's kind of calling. Well, they call us queer for a long time, but we took it back. It's kind of like that.
But see, that's a great point. That's a great connection to his content, because if you watch his earlier video, that one that you were just showing on the stream, now a person is going to learn we don't say thug. We say we believe there's a genetic component to crime.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Giving them the words to be able to still say it without.
And then how it works, and here's how, and this how I'm gonna show you how quickly just how it works out in our community, and the thing that gets frustrating to me, and I'm just being honest. What then happens is there's an MDD debate or somewhere like that called "Is there a genetic component to crime?" And they spend 90 minutes with somebody who's supposed to be a leftist on the progressive going back and forth about there's a genetic component to crime, and nobody mentions the word race, right? And as a black person, seeing that type of shit is what drives me crazy, because I know the person on the left and the person on the right know exactly why we're having this conversation. We just want to say, Black people naturally commit more crime, but we won't talk about it. Instead, we'll debate the intellectual merits of is there a genetic component to crime? And it's a I'm recognizing it's an issue. Like
there's a genetic component to hard work and productivity too.
There it is.
Goodness.
There it is. Because here's how I think they do a lot of this stuff. It's sort of like, I'm gonna put myself in this situation. I get asked to do a debate like this, or a friend of mine gets asked to do a debate like this. All I'm thinking about is race. I'm thinking I'm going into a debate about race. I'm debating a racist. Okay, here's what it is. So I might only even accept the invitation to do the debate because I think it's a racist dog whistle and I want to address it. But then when we get into the actual space, we get on the panel, we get into the quote unquote conversation or debate, and I try to bring it up, my opponent will say I'm out of bounds. Why am I inferring that they're racist? Why am I even talking about race? They didn't mention the race. Then the moderator will be like, Mr. Bundy, stay on topic. We're not here to talk about race. We're here to talk about, is there a genetic component to crime? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. A genetic component, which population?
Yeah, and so it just gets to a really weird space where even if you're motivated by social justice to engage in these spaces, your engagement is going to be constrained in ways that doesn't allow us to effectively advocate for social justice, and sort of just has us looking like a complacent party that's sitting down to have a cup of tea and a nice conversation with a Nazi.
Yeah. This is what we're up against. These are the people. This is the arguments they're making. These are the feelies that they're reaching out to, because they're not actually reaching out with any level of more than surface level feel good science to make people feel good about themselves. Like this video about how people that studied human origins in the 19th century were racist. People in the 19th century were racist? Holy shit! Who would have thought?
Right.
It makes the racists feel good. They're like, I'm no more racist than Charles Darwin. It's like, shut the fuck up. Charles Darwin lived 200 years ago. You live today. You know better. We've mapped the human genome. You have no excuse. He really hates Erica.
Yeah, you can tell. Steph said she wants to talk about the paradox of tolerance and the power of justice. Definitely down to do that. I don't know if this is an open call situation. If not, we'll definitely chat about it
Yeah.
later. Because
Well, why don't we could probably reconvene and gather and see if Steph wants to go live. I'm still up to do more streams. I just want to close this down on my channel. So I
yeah,
usually go about a half hour and a
I
half
didn't
on
know if
these.
it was just the one video or if you had another one. I don't know how many
Um,
were we doing today.
I just played on an hour and a half.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. So we got through the
so
one, and that's
so
cool.
yeah. I always have backup videos just in
I
case.
see. I got you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let me say this before we go. Then this is also a challenge to evolutionary biologists. Um, one of the things that is currently frustrating me in my career is trying to communicate the value of these engagements to other evolutionary biologists. Um, I think we largely treat the creationism versus evolution debate as a settled matter, something that we won sort of in the classroom and more importantly in the courtroom. But I feel like that's an incorrect assessment of the situation. I think the creationists and other anti-science folks have just moved into a new realm. They have picked up with um, using social media, using homeschooling, trying to infiltrate the public school system, as you see their efforts on the school board and with PragerU. And I'm very well aware of this being especially a problem for biologists because biology itself is sort of the tool that's used to marginalize people in these cases. So it was notions of biology that often separated men and women and justified treating women inferior, like they were inferior people. People thought that was okay because they had different biology, and that biology, that understanding of biology, was used to reinforce the status quo and patriarchy rather than to undermine it. Um, Biology and biological justifications were used to treat Black people differently, to experiment on them, to treat us as though we could not feel pain the same way, or that our bodies could be used like lab rats. And so much of what we had to fight against to make progress racially was this misuse of biology. Now, more than ever, people who are sex or gender minorities, including especially trans people right now, are at the tip of the spear, as Stephanie Helms would say. They're the ones who are currently having biology used against them in a very, very weaponized fashion. Um, and I believe it is the responsibility, not of the public, not of science communicators, but of scientists to correct this. Because what currently happens for the most part is science communicators and the general public try to accurately represent the science they learned or the current research to the best of their ability. Well, if a science communicator is quoting or reading or using as source material outdated science, which reinforces, um, these sort of separations of people that don't hold up to the evidence, then all the science communicator is going to do is more harm to people. And we're at a time when I love my peers. I really do. And I work with so many impressive evolutionary biologists. I'm very privileged to be in that field. And most of my colleagues do incredible research, just stuff that will blow your mind, just what they're doing with genes and microscopy and all this different stuff. But to me, as important as all that stuff is, our field is being used to do harm to marginalized people, and that is more important to me than understanding the details of some genetic mechanism or the specifics of a species evolutionary history, or what happens if you denature this compound and it turns into this other compound. All those are important questions. But first, we've got to address our field being used to do harm in society. So, Bree, I really appreciate you bringing me on for this, because this is something I can take to my superiors, to the people that I'm trying to get to hire me, to the people that I'm trying to get to fund my educational efforts, and say, look at what's happening right now. All of that progress we made on race, they're trying to wipe that stuff out. And just quickly, Bree, like I actually applied to work in a lab, the Eddie lab, that actually does research so it's like a biology teaching and learning lab, and they're trying to do research on how minority students are impacted by narratives in biology and how that affects their persistence in biological fields. They're trying to understand how trans people are responding to the biological narratives we hear. But you have people out here who are saying things. They're saying, I'm saying, you know, men are men and women are women I'm saying this based on the biology. What were you born with? Trans people are hearing complete erasure. There's actually a paper called It's Complete Erasure. They are going into a biology classroom and feeling like their identity is trying to be completely erased by what the professor in the front of the classroom is teaching. And it's wrong. It's not accurate. It's not accurate, and it's hurting people. So look, I take this stuff really seriously. I'm, again, very grateful for you bringing me on to do this. But these are the type of narratives that we have to deal with, because the same way that dude's talking about race, reality, anti-science, it's people out here talking about gender science and sex realism or whatever. I don't even know what they call it, but you know, that sort of essentializing male and female in a way that it's just not true, folks. But this is something that I'll keep with me, and I will definitely be taking to my peers. So thank you so much, Bree.
All right. Yeah. Then thank you for coming on. It's nice to have an actual scientist on to counter this.
We out here.
Yeah. So I love my scientist friends that are able to engage these topics from a critical perspective in actual relevant fields, you know. So
yes,
thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to everybody out there in the live chat as well for sticking around and kind of slogging through this. Though I do want to overturn more stuff that on these channels, that in channels like this. I do enjoy cracking these open and just debunking all this BS. So look for more stuff like this, because this is not an isolated incident. These people are everywhere, and if we don't keep shining the light on them, they're going to worm their way into different platforms in our life. That's going to cause a lot of trouble for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Right. Remember to be kind. Take
Pocket
care.
Locker 86.
Yep.
Sorry, I forgot to plug my channel.
Yep. Pocket Locker 86. Yep, hit it up. Remember to be kind, take care, and we'll see you next time. I think I'm gonna exit on the pronouns guy again. He's funny.
Nice.
Yeah. Good night.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!